Here are 5 tips and tricks for the Sony A5000 interchangeable lens camera. Happy Monday everyone, and welcome to My Tech Monday. So about a month and a half ago I did a review on this camera right here, the Sony A5000 camera, and overall I am very impressed with this camera, both for the quality of the pictures that it takes and also for the value, the price on it. If you want to check out the review that I did on this camera, click the link up here, or the link is down in the description below. However, today's video is not going to be that. I figured I would give you some tips and tricks that I've picked up along the way while using this camera. So getting started with number 5, I'm going to talk about dark shots. What I mean by dark shots is when you're sitting there filming yourself and you have a lot of light coming in from behind you and it almost appears as though you're completely blacked out on the screen of the camera. I'd say a good 8 out of 10 times I have sat there, I've worried about it, and when I look back at the footage after I've uploaded it onto the computer, I'd say the good 8 out of 10 times that I can see myself just fine. Granted, when you're in a completely dark situation, you're not outside, I'm not talking about worrying about that. I'm talking about when you're outside and you're worrying that your image is going to be too blacked out from being in the direct light. Speaking of light, darkness, and shadows, my number 4 tip is that you can actually preset the minimum and maximum setting for the ISO. If your camera is running completely default settings, then you can simply just press right on the directional pad for the camera, and if you press right once more when you're at the ISO option, you can choose your minimum ISO and your maximum ISO. This may not seem like a big deal, but this was something that I did not know until a good month and a half of owning the camera, that you can actually move over one more step in the menu. My number 3 tip is something else involving the menus, and that's saving power with the camera. Now, if you're going to go out there and film stuff and you don't feel like carrying 10 extra batteries around, I would suggest going onto your camera and optimizing the power save options. My personal power save option is after 2 minutes of not using the camera will shut itself off, but there is a wide array of different choices that you have, different options that you have to choose how many minutes that you want or how many seconds that you want the camera to shut off after not being used. Obviously, the less amount of time that the camera goes without being used before it powers down is going to give you the most amount of power out of your battery, but I'm also thinking at the same time that if you're only having it so it shuts off after maybe even 5 seconds of not being used, you're probably going to be using a lot of power to turn the camera back on and get the lens to extend again and everything when you get it started back up. My number 2 tip may seem like a basic one, but did you know that you can actually customize a majority of the keys on the camera to suit your preference? Simply by going into the menu and choosing these options here on the screen, you can go in there and pick just about every single button on the camera. You can choose them to do your own task at will. I think the ability to map out custom keys on the camera comes in great, especially as your level of progression increases in this hobby. You're going to find that some things you use a lot more than others, and the fact that you can change out different buttons and you don't have to be locked in stone, set in stone to a certain option is just great. So finally, my number 1 tip for this camera right here is probably the most basic of them all, but it's put a screen protector on it. The camera doesn't come with a viewfinder, and the screen is the only way to size up your picture other than just eyeballing it. You want to protect that one essential thing on the camera that's going to allow you to take the shots that you need to take, and you don't have to go out there and buy a specific screen protector just for that screen. Heck, I'm even using an old iPhone 4 screen protector that I got from the dollar store, and I just put it on there. It does great. It prevents scratches and micro scratches and all things of that nature. But if you want to keep this camera lasting, you want to keep this camera for a few years and try not to damage it, I would recommend throwing a screen protector on that thing as soon as possible. Alright everyone, that's going to do it for today's episode. If you have any of your own specific tips or tricks for this camera right here, leave them in the comment section down below. And if you agreed with any of my choices for tips or tricks for this camera, hit the thumbs up button. I'll see everybody tomorrow for Gaming Tuesday. Peace.